Lesson 6. Indiana Andrews, ? You put on your hat and strap on your belt, double checking that you have your knife and gun at your side. You have seen too much of the world to be naive about it and had too many close calls. You are determined to carry the tools you need to get yourself out of any situation, and believe you me, you've experienced a lot of it. The hot sands of the desert are waiting, and you're about to go where few have dared to go before. Perhaps you should be nervous, but all you feel is a sense of determination and happiness. Each day is a gift, another opportunity to live life to its fullest. Your team is with you, your bags are packed, and you are going to start a new dig site to see what fascinating treasures lie beneath the sandy sea. You're going on a dinosaur hunt, and you're not afraid. Roy Chapman Andrews. Our story today puts us smack dab in the shoes of our adventurous scientist, Roy Chapman Andrews. Born in 1884 in Wisconsin, Andrews was an adventurer from the day he could walk. He roamed the streams, meadows, and woods, searching for new little critters, hunting, fishing, and exploring the world around him. Probably giving his poor mother some serious gray hair, Andrews had many close calls through his adventuring. He encountered typhoons and wild dogs, fell off cliffs, was bitten by a python, and was even attacked by bandits. His interest in nature led him to learn about taxidermy in his spare time, something he relied upon as a backup profession to help pay for his own education. One story of his many near-death experiences happened in March of 1905 when he and his friend were on a hunting trip together. They were out in their boat in the icy waters of Rock River when one of their paddles fell in. His friend jumped in to get it, tipping the boat in his haste and dumping Andrews in as well. Separated and discombobulated, they floated farther away from one another until Andrews saw his son dip below the surface and not come back up. Later, studies revealed that his friend's legs had cramped from the cold, which prevented him from swimming to safety. The death of his friend deeply impacted Andrews. He determined to be better prepared and more precautions in the future to protect those who were with him. Did you know? Some say that Roy Andrews was the inspiration for the story of fictitious Indiana Jones, an archaeologist who had wild adventures in his search for historical relics and hidden treasures. If you look up pictures of a revolving explorer, you might see a striking resemblance. What do you think? Andrews studied archaeology and evolution in college and graduated in 1906. He began his stellar career at the American Museum of Natural History as a janitor. Talk about working your way up. After a humble beginning, though, hard work and many discoveries, Andrew eventually became the director of the very museum where he had been scrubbing toilets. He took to the open seas and became a student of nature wherever he went. From Korea to Siberia to Norway, he documented and studied the marine life and animals he encountered in his travels and began to build a name for himself in the scientific community. An author, zoologist, and gifted fossil hunter, his career was just beginning. The Gobi Desert Expedition. In the heart of the Gobi Desert in Asia lay sandstones buried under what was once an windswept dune. The landscape in the region was harsh, searing heat and frequent sandstorms, but it was considered the world's best location for finding mammal, lizard, and dinosaur fossils. In 1921, a team of about 40 well-organized staff members and scientists from the American Museum of Natural History set out from the shores of America to embark on the first of 5 journeys that formed the largest and most costly scientific land-based exploration of its time, the Central Asiatic Expeditions. Their journey had many aims, one of which was to continue to prove the theory of evolution. A secondary goal of the expedition was to continue to find evidence about how dinosaurs reproduced and to search for eggs. On this front, Andrews proved to be more successful. 2 years later, he found a clutch of eggs in a nest along with an adult dinosaur. His original theory was that the eggs belonged to a new species they had just discovered in the same area, the Protoceratops, and that the eggs had been stolen by the fossil with them. Though Oviraptor, however, it was later discovered that the adult found with the eggs was actually the parent after all, and he had instead stumbled upon an oviraptor's nest. The eggs were a huge sensation in the United States when the expedition returned. Though Andrews had told the Chinese government that the eggs were not particularly valuable in order to get them out, he ended up auctioning an egg at a fundraiser to raise money for the expedition. The Chinese were not impressed. It didn't lay a good foundation of trust for Andrews, whose next journey was delayed while he tried to appeal to the Chinese people over the whole debacle. The team went back and forth many times over a period of about 8 years, finding new fossils and breaking new ground for the field of paleontology. They eventually ran out of money during the Great Depression and had to stop. This is when Andrews finished off his career as a curator for the American Museum of Natural History. He found the job decidedly boring. He eventually retired and lived the rest of his life on a farm, immersed in the nature he loved since he was a child. Protoceratops. Like the sheep of the dinosaur, the Protoceratops were considered to be the bottom of the food chain. First discovered during the Central Asiatic exploration, they were named Protoceratops adventurus Andrewsi, after their fossil finder, Chapman Andrews. They had a beak-like snout and walked on all fours, with a bony ridge along their skull, reminiscent of the Perterosaurus. These dinosaurs were unmistakable, and there had been many fossils found over the years. In fact, the fossils match the Greek myth of the griffin, who had a beak, walked on 4 legs, was the size of a sheep, and had a long, thin tail. Isn't it interesting that old stories and myths carry similarities to the evidence that has been found over the past 100 years? From dragon-like creatures to huge swimming sea monsters, such as the Leviathan of the Bible, there might be more to the stories than they are given credit for in the scientific community. The Protoceratops name meant first horned face. He was found in Asia, and his diet was herbivorous, which I guess is plants. He was 6 feet long and 400 pounds. The Velopsur Raptor, another popular dinosaur that had been somewhat blown up, pun intended, in mainstream media, is the Velopsur Raptor. While usually shown to be as tall or taller than a human, many scientists believe they were actually much smaller, possibly as small as a turkey. This might not be as fun to imagine, but we do know that they were fierce predators. One fossil was found with the remains of an undigested Perterosaurus, a flying dinosaur, in its stomach, and you can almost imagine it leaping into the air to snatch its afternoon snack. Velociraptors were carnivorous and not super picky. Because they were smaller, they were likely fast and light on their feet. They had serrated teeth and long, sharp claws that could be used to aid their attack. While most shows depict them as brilliant and tactical, the evidence suggests that their brains might have been as small as an alligator's. The first Velopsur Raptor was discovered in 1923 in the Gobi Desert expedition by one of the workers named Peter Kaysen. It was named back on U.S. soil by the president of the American Museum of Natural History. Henry F. Osborn, the most famous Velociraptor fossil ever found, was in the Mongolian in 1971. It showed a Protoceratops and Velociraptor locked in combat and was aptly named Fighting Dinosaurs. The quick facts of this dinosaur: he was a swift thief, he was found in Mongolia, and his diet was carnivorous. He was about 6.6 feet tall, and he probably weighed about 100 pounds. We can sum up the life and personality of Roy Andrews with his famous phrase, "Don't court hardship." After he shot himself in the leg with a .38 caliber bullet meant for a wounded antelope, he had an opportunity to practice his advice and move on. Thankful that the bullet hadn't hit his bone and he was still able to walk. Andrew was an adventurer who used his love of nature and excitement to propel him into a lifestyle that perfectly suited his interests. His expeditions led to many groundbreaking contributions to the American Museum of Natural History and our understanding of some of the dinosaurs we know today. He was a prolific writer and teacher, shared what he learned throughout his fascinating life. His legacy lives on through his discoveries, his research, his writing, and his stories, which are still recalled to this day. And that concludes Lesson 5 for today. Thanks.